Well, hello. I'm here with Doug to talk about the pathetic Democrats and other things. And it is Tuesday, November 11, 2025. And so
So,
yeah, go
so
ahead.
wait, Sam,
Yeah,
what's today? It's Veterans Day in the U.S.
right. Which is, I guess, commemorating the time we won World War One.
Yeah, and in Europe it's called Poppy Day,
I didn't know
and
that.
they because of Flanders Fields poppies, the red ones with the Maltese cross.
Oh,
So they use that to collect funds for the veterans. And Germany, they also celebrate it,
hmm.
but I can't pronounce the German word for it.
Ah,
And I think they use a white poppy.
oh,
And the reason it's on the 11th of November is because that's when the official armistice was signed, and the war ended officially at 11 on November 11th at 11:11 a.m. and 11 seconds, something like that.
ah. And the war to end all wars. After that, it solved everything.
That's right. We didn't have a war after that.
That's right. Well,
And some people consider World War II just a continuation. There was just a pause between World War One and World War II.
yeah, which we're reliving with Trump's party, Great Gatsby party,
Yeah.
and the similar roll up in a massive bubble in the stock market based on nothing, racing madly towards an obvious crash.
Well, and look at cryptocurrency.
Oh, well, I think AI has dwarfed cryptocurrency in the
Yeah.
useless Ponzi scheme competition.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. It's just like 1929 when everybody thought they were rich because they kept buying this junk that was overpriced and the price kept going up. So they all felt richer and richer until suddenly, poof, they realized they weren't rich at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, the first most important thing I think today is that the Democrats, as Jon Stewart predicted on his podcast after the election, he had he had Democratic candidate commentators on there, and they said, "Boy, this election is great for the Democrats. It's amazing." And he said, "Okay, now how are the Democrats going to screw this up?" And they immediately did screw it up. After a gigantic victory, they then just caved completely on the shutdown, getting absolutely nothing for it, showing that the shutdown was nothing but a hypocritical political stunt. However, I think there must be something wrong with me because I just think everything is fine. That seems to be my perennial glandular condition because I think this is all as it should be. What happened is the shutdown for 30 or 40 days revealed how incredibly callous and useless Trump is to his supporters because he refused to pay their food benefits, refused to help pay their medical benefits, and just built a giant bathroom full of marble and had a ridiculous party and built this ballroom. And that really bothered them. In fact, I heard today on a podcast that the Republicans are very, very, very upset about the visual of the tractors just tearing down the White House. That really bothers them. And, it's hard for me to understand Republicans, the stuff that bothers them, but stuff is getting through to them. A lot of them are really fed up with Trump now. And as the polls have told us, the only group less popular than Republicans is Democrats. Republicans have been down at like 40% approval, and Democrats have been down like 30% approval because Democrats are very, very disgusted about their own leaders. And so I think the point is the Republicans are horrible. They're just tyrants that want to crush the people for no reason at all. But the Democrats have always been just a little bit better than the Republicans. They're completely corrupt, sold out to corporations, full of hypocritical promises and no real principles, and that's also exposed. And I think this is healthy. What happens every 80 years in America is the old system burns down and we have to develop a new system. And the point is the Republican system is intolerable and the Democratic system is not enough better. It's better, but it's not good enough. We really need to trash them both and have better leaders, and that's why I think we can see the people who criticize the pathetic Democrat Senate caving are and call for Chuck Schumer to resign are AOC, Bernie Sanders, J.B. Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, Hakeem Jeffries, Ro Khanna, and New Jersey Governor-elect Mike Sherrill have all condemned this deal, and I think this is what will happen. We've kind of throw away these old fossilized leaders, that come from an early age of machine politics and just selling out. And we need a new generation of energetic, young, idealistic Democrats who actually believe what they say and are not just cynically lying. And this is incredibly obvious. Like Chuck Schumer arranged this whole thing and then carefully chose 8 Republicans that aren't running for re-election soon to stand up and vote against this, and he can hide behind it and say, oh, I voted against it, so I'm not guilty. And they think they're fooling their own voters. And I think this just shows that they have as much contempt for their voters and as much delight in just stabbing them in the back as the Republicans do. They just lie about it. And I think both sides need to kick out all their leaders, and we need new political parties with new people. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. So the shutdown, I think, served a purpose of like cleaning out the deadwood in both parties. Anyway,
Well, that was sort of the campaign promise, drain the swamp, was it not?
that's right. It kind of worked out, didn't it? And uh,
Yeah.
and another thing that's going to happen now, of course, is now that they're going to pass a budget bill in the Senate, they're going to have to bring the House back. The House Speaker is going to have to resume House sessions. And when he does that, they're going to have to release the Epstein files. And the rumors have been flying that the Epstein files are much worse for Trump than they thought. And I heard Allison Gill get a podcast going over something she put up in July, which is really very interesting. The details of what happened here. 1,000 FBI agents worked in like May and June or March and April to flag all mentions of Trump in the 100,000 Epstein-related records, more than 300,000 pages with a lot of photographs. And it was done in typical Trump administration, absolute mind-boggling incompetence. There was a small group in the FBI that's actually capable of doing this kind of careful classified work, but they decided they wanted it all done in just a few days, so they brought in more than 1,000 FBI agents from other parts of the agency that don't really understand how to handle this data. And then they started them going through it, and they didn't bother to put any access controls on the network share. So all of them had access to all the files. And they gave them instructions, but they kept changing the instructions every few hours and making them start over from the beginning over and over and over. And they made them work 24 and 48-hour shifts. So, they did everything possible to make people unhappy and confused about what they were doing. And so all of this information leaked out. And they as I went through it, they were very disgusted by what they were doing, and in fact, they felt like the pattern of redactions was redact all mentions of Trump, but don't redact information about the victims. In fact, forward information about the victims to a central list, and they think that was going to be used to harm the victims and defame them. And so they felt like it was relatively obvious that what they were doing was a horrible cover up, and they didn't respect it at all. And I think all this is going to come out like next week when the House goes back in session. And I really think this is going to be effectively the end of Trump. When everybody loses faith in him, and MAGA is now tearing itself apart. I'm hearing all kinds of podcasts about the internal fighting in the Republicans. Tucker Carlson brought in Nick Fuentes, who is the open youth Nazi, the Hitler Youth in the Republican Party, and that's one faction rising, and other factions are condemning him. They're all hate groups, but they differ slightly on how much they hate Israel and the Jews. But that's the thing that's splitting them apart. And so MAGA is fracturing into several different Nazi flavors.
Well, that's why you need a dictator.
That's right. And this is exactly what happens when the dictator stumbles and starts to get old, like Trump is falling asleep on camera during meetings and forgetting what's going on. It's obvious that he's declining with dementia. And therefore, since there's no longer a strong leader, the mob tears itself apart as several, second-rate people try to take over. And so,
Or what happens is we do what happened in one of the original TV show Mission Impossible episodes, where the dictator was a puppet that
yeah.
was kept in a room that had actually died or
Yeah.
was bedridden.
Well, they
And
could make a deep fake Trump with AI. They could totally
yeah,
do that. In fact, it wouldn't have to be a very good AI to talk as well as Trump. It would just have to sort of ramble and stutter and lose the train of thought and just babble nonsense. That would actually be
yeah.
pretty good Trump AI. Now that you mention it, you might have saved the nation. They can just put up a Trump AI to be our president. But I don't know if they're going to do that. But that would be one way to move forward. Anyway, so
But the question is, Sam, who would be behind it? See,
Well,
that's the problem.
obviously Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, the king. And speaking of which, Elon Musk will make $1 trillion if he goes back to work at Tesla and makes better cars. But they can't get him to do it because he's totally obsessed with making his porn bot. He's spending all of his time developing the Grok porn AI girlfriend. And he's doing it not only by spending a whole lot of time himself working on it to perfect it, but he's taken women from XAI and coerced employees and coerced them into donating their biometric information. They're going to record them and use them to improve the AI sex bot. And the women are kind of nervous about this, saying, "Hey, this is kind of like deep fake porn of me. I'm not sure this is okay." And they're like, "Shut up! You have to do it." So that's
Why doesn't he just use Barbie dolls?
Lord knows. I'm sure he feels like recording everything about real women will make it more realistic and wonderful. And by the way, this
All
thing will
right.
probably make him a lot of money. I think he understands his base like Donald Trump. The Elon fanboys would probably love nothing better than an AI porn bot. Maybe he can put the AI porn bot in the Tesla. I always wondered, they have this giant TV screen in front of a Tesla. And I thought, watching TV while you drive is probably not a good idea. So maybe they could just put the AI porn bot on the TV in the Tesla while the Tesla
Yeah.
auto drives. That would probably be a hit. People would probably pay some money for that feature. Anyway, it's a brave new world.
Well, Sam,
Yeah.
since we're talking about Elon,
Yeah.
this is kind of in the news. Starlink, you've heard of Starlink, right?
Yeah, people say it's pretty good. Kind of expensive, but good.
Yeah, kind of expensive or good, but did you know that they lose around 500 satellites a year?
Oh yeah, I know they lose quite a lot. They're deliberately in a low orbit, and they have to replace them, which is certainly better for the planet in that it avoids the Kessler syndrome.
Right. And the Kessler syndrome is that we have so much space junk up there.
When they start colliding with each other, multiplying this
Yeah.
junk, and the Earth becomes surrounded by so much shrapnel that you can't use space anymore.
Yeah. And there's potentially global warming because we've now got or global cooling out of weather change. Let's
Well,
just say that.
I haven't heard of that because I don't think it'd be so much as to actually reflect a lot of sunlight. But the main point is space would be all full of bullets, so you can't shoot rockets
Yeah.
anymore without them
Yeah.
getting blasted by the bullets.
So they lose one or two satellites a day,
Yeah,
which is really surprising.
and I've read articles that say there's actually a lot of pollution from that, from the aluminum burning up way high in the atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's what I would think is, don't we?
Yeah,
Well, hold on. How large are the satellites?
that's why I rebelled when I first read that because the actual number of like meteorites that fall is much larger. But
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
spacecraft do contain special, unusual metals and stuff, so maybe it's doing some kind of harm.
Well, yeah. I just find that
Yeah,
kind of hard to
I,
believe.
I rebelled just like you at first. I said, wait a minute, how big is a satellite? How can that compare to the total amount of junk hitting our air? I have no idea. I saw the article, but
Yeah, I mean, aren't those satellites the size of like a 55-gallon drum
yeah,
or
something
a
like that.
or
Yeah.
a 5-gallon bucket? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but they do,
yeah.
like printed circuit boards, I suppose they do contain, heavy metals and strange toxic stuff.
Well, so do volcanoes.
That's true. Wonder.
Yeah.
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 Anyway.
So, okay. Anyway. So anyway, they lose one or two satellites a day.
Yeah.
And related story that China was forced to postpone the return of three astronauts because a suspected collision with space debris has appeared to damage the capsule they're
Yeah.
supposed to return in.
Yeah. And that's going to happen more often. I mean, yeah, more and more
And
space junk up there.
yeah, and wasn't that the case? And that's not on the ISS space station. Those Chinese are stuck on their space station.
Yeah.
And I think it was in the late 2010s that the US, we had our astronauts stuck for, was it 9 months? It was
Yeah.
supposed to be a week tour,
Yeah.
and
That's
they were
right.
stuck there. Yeah, and that turned out to be a paint chip.
Yeah. Well, that's the
So,
thing. This thing, the Kessler syndrome is real. Lots and lots
yeah.
of space junk up there.
So at the same time, the Russians, right? The Russians want to get into space.
Well,
And
they're
what's
on
their goal?
well, they're on the ISS, and but the problem is their stuff keeps leaking and making trouble for the ISS. The Russian spacecraft seems to be kind of substandard, as you might imagine. Russia's in
Right.
bad shape right now.
But the Russians, aren't they building or testing a satellite destroyer?
I know the Chinese are. I imagine the Russians are too, and I think so are we. I think we're all testing and planning those.
Yeah. So
Everyone's
we're going to
planning to
have
put
more.
military stuff in space, which is a really stupid idea because satellites are defenseless and predictable. You can shoot them down with a missile very easily.
Right, right,
But
right.
everybody's putting space weapons up now.
Yeah. And how's our Space Force doing?
They exist. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're
I wouldn't.
supposedly securing all this stuff.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Anyway, that's kind of the space stories this week, but I thought it
Yep.
was interesting that Starlink loses a satellite or two a day.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, so
What else you got for us,
there's
Sam?
lots of AI nonsense. Microsoft has a new attack called Whisper Leak, which is really a small variation on existing attacks. But what they found is if you ask an AI a question, the answer, as you know, comes a few words at a time, sort of slowly. So it creates distinctive network traffic. So even though it's encrypted with TLS, you can just monitor the timing and size of the packets. And you can determine with 98% accuracy what the question was in a limited test environment where you have like only two questions and you're trying to tell them apart. But their point is you could find out by side channel attacks, analyzing the network traffic, what people are asking about. And this is a compromise of privacy. So Microsoft announced it, and several models have already implemented mitigations, such as adding random obfuscation data to replies. So, and they say users could mitigate the risk by using a VPN. So anyway, that's a not terribly surprising, but a new privacy leak of AI. But a more important one is Google Analytics. This one is pretty awful. So if you ask OpenAI a question, it turns out that frequently it doesn't know the answer to the question, so it looks for it on the web. And it looks for it on the web by just taking your query and pasting it into Google without telling you. And
Okay.
Google then records it and puts it in this tool called the Google Search Console, which people look at to see how many people are searching for things. I've seen these news reports. How many people searched for like what a filibuster is this week?
Yeah.
It's cool. You
Yeah.
can see what people are searching for. So your data you send to ChatGPT is sent to Google and then exposed publicly. And this
Okay.
is not every time, but occasionally this happens. And it just shows that the privacy risk of using these online chatbots is much worse than you thought. Not only is it that they might be training on the data and repeat it back to another, they're going to use the data and throw it around, sending it to other services which expose it. This is you're trusting somebody that is manifestly sloppy and careless with your data here.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
why, you really use these things like at a company, you really need to run it on your own server. So it never goes to one of these companies. And the these companies are basically just a giant Ponzi scheme where they promote this stuff with outrageous claims to just get more and more investment to cover the debts they can't cover. And the big short guy, the guy that made a ton of money when the savings and loan housing investments went bad in 2008, he just bet 1 billion shorting AI stocks. In particular, Palantir and Nvidia. He thinks it's all going to burst soon, which I tend to think too. And the anyway, so that's. I thought I had another. Last one I wanted to mention in this AI section is that the number one country hit is now from an AI country artist that doesn't exist. And I'd say this justifies the story we talked about a couple of times ago, where there's now an AI actress. And the real actresses that said, wait, this is really bad for us, because of course she looks totally perfect. She's just a drawing of a woman. And how could any real woman compete with that? And that's a good question. But of course, I think it's just a natural extension of cartoons and CGI. You have these artificially created images that are, of course, more perfect than any real human. And maybe she'll be able to replace human actresses and put them out of business. I don't think so. Just like I'm talking about all this AI stuff, because I think the point, if you, especially if you think about actresses, it is not really that they're 100% beautiful. It's that they somehow convey emotion and you believe in the character they're portraying and stuff. I think they have to be human for that to work. But we're going to find out. We'll
Mhm.
see if an AI generated actress can actually succeed as an actress. I would think maybe in something that really isn't much acting, like maybe an action film where she's just running around shooting people and having superpowers. That might work. But in like a drama where she has to convey that she's actually in love with somebody and fighting with them and stuff, I would think you'd need a real human to do that. But we'll see.
I don't know, Sam. We've had uh, cartoons.
We have. And cartoons serve a purpose, but they never seem to replace real actors. Real actors connect with people in a different way.
No, and we saw that as a huge failure with Disney and Roger Rabbit, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Well, that
didn't
was a
we?
big hit, wasn't it?
I thought it was a complete flop.
Well, I don't know if I maybe I don't know if it really made enough money. I know, but I think we've had usually don't mix cartoons and people. That was what they did, which is generally not a good idea because when you see them
Yeah.
side by side, they just don't go together. But the cartoons themselves can make some money, and the movies with people can make some money.
Well, I thought it was a flop. Let me just check here. No, it was not a flop,
Yeah, I remember
according to AI.
it was
It
pretty
was a,
big at the time. Yeah,
it was the highest grossing film in 1988.
yeah, I thought it was.
Whoops.
Yeah, but the point is, it was not done again. I mean, mixing obvious cartoons and people is just not a common thing to do. Disney tried it a couple times. It's weird. Normally, you do one or the other. And of course, the point of this is you would have the AI girlfriend, the AI actress, presumably with real actors mixed in the same movie. And that would be the acid test. That would be the hard one. Because you can usually tell the difference when you see these people next to each other.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the uncanny valley, the famous thing that if you're like 95% accurate, then people hate it more than ever because it looks like a strangely deformed human. If it was completely like just a cartoon, that would be okay. But if it's almost a human, but just a little bit wrong, that's really bothers people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, what else you got?
All right. What else do I have? Let's see. FBI subpoenas the web registrars to see who's behind Archive IS.
Oh, yeah. I know. I didn't realize it was a mystery, but I've been using Archive IS to get around paywalls for a while. And yep, it's now they're
And
trying to
do,
find out who it is.
and do you know, is this because it's circumventing the paywalls?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
rumors are that it's a Russian, one
Yeah.
individual
So,
Russian who's putting up this stuff. It's which is I wondered because it's sort of obviously illegal and nobody ever seems to do anything about it.
yeah. So, Sam, if it's illegal, you'd think that the newspapers would come up with a way of preventing this.
Well, they have. I mean, I've noticed, for example, the Wall Street Journal. No, you can no longer bypass the paywall with it. They just
Oh,
all they have
okay.
to do is just change their server to it replies with like, please turn on JavaScript. That's all you see.
Yeah.
You try to, and like a few weeks ago, you could read Wall Street Journal articles. So all they have to do is modify their paywall.
Yeah. So that's kind of the simple solution. Instead, we're trying to track somebody down and
Well, track him down and shut. I was thinking this. The Pirate Bay was like this, right? For years, there was all this stuff, and eventually they tracked it down and shut it down. I think the Pirate Bay is gone. I haven't heard about it in years.
yeah, no, that was gone. And it was sort of resurrected in other forms.
Yeah.
But yeah, you think with all the scamming that's going on, why are they just going after Archive IS?
Well, the copyright holders feel like they have a ton of money to make, of course.
Yeah, but they could fix it easily. Whereas people are getting scammed, it's not so easy.
Well, now that you bring that up, this is
Yes.
actually a fun one. Well, I guess
Okay.
I think I talked about it last week. I was just thinking that the Facebook, promotes scams, and it's
Oh, let's
and,
talk about Facebook. Yeah.
Facebook. I mentioned it last week. I think you weren't here, but the Facebook have just if they know who's selling fraudulent and illegal products on Facebook, they run a tool, but unless they're 95% sure, they don't ban the ad. Instead, they charge them an extra fee to discourage them. So it's such a big deal that they make 10% of their entire profit from known scams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
this is
exactly correct.
Yes, this is Facebook for you. Facebook is the most cynic. Facebook, I think, exceeds even the early Microsoft in just cynical exploitation and greed. They're just here to make money and more money and to hell with the consequences.
Yeah. So, Sam, when you say that Microsoft was just here to make money, in what way?
Bill Gates made it clear from the start. When he was like 18, he went to the users groups and saw people trading like copies of software on floppy disks and said, "Hey, this is piracy." And when he distributed his first thing he ever wrote, like a basic interpreter, he had like the first license agreement on there saying, "You agree to pay me money for this." He right from the very start, he was about making money. Microsoft was a shamelessly
Well,
commercial company in the early days when everybody was just a hobbyist not thinking about that, except him. And I'm not saying that's evil, but when Microsoft got big, he was evil like crazy. He would do stuff like contact retail outlets and say, you cannot sell any Linux machine or we will ban you from all Microsoft products and you'll go broke and stuff like that. Basically, extortion.
yeah. So let me go back. That was
Yeah.
the open letter to the Homebrew Computer Club
Yeah.
that was in Palo Alto or down on the peninsula.
Yeah.
And what it was they created a piece of software, which I think was an operating system, and it wasn't on floppy disk, it was on paper tape.
Oh.
And he would sell it. And the difference was that most people were selling hardware. Like here's a new, joystick or something like that that you can use with a computer.
Hmm.
But Gates was selling, and the hardware could not easily be replicated. Okay.
Yep.
And so what the open letter was Gates and I guess it was Paul Allen had written, I might be mistaken on Allen, but they had written an operating system that was on paper tape that they were selling it. No difference in selling the hardware, but the difference was it could easily be copied or replicated.
Right.
And so what Gates was saying is, look, we put in a lot of hard work and effort, and you're stealing from us
Yeah.
because you're giving it away and you're trading.
Yeah.
And to be fair, on the flip side, there were people that were writing programs and they were giving it away freely. And
Well,
it
and I,
was,
yeah, and I
yeah,
think this led to like the Free Software Foundation and its whole ethic that software should be free because you can copy it. And Bill Gates was at the forefront of no, we should have digital rights management and charge for stuff and limit your ability to copy it, which is, the movie industry and music industry became the biggest champions of that, somehow trying to stop people from copying it, even though it's digital and easily copied.
yeah, yeah. And what I recall, I wasn't part of this, but in the readings that I've done, it really was a division in the Homebrew Computer Club, and that
Sure.
some people said, he's right. He did go through. He spent hundreds, I don't know how many hours, but let's say hundreds or thousands of hours
Yeah.
perfecting a software program. He should be paid for it. It's like writing a book or you're right, music
Sure.
that could easily be reproduced.
Sure, and
And others,
Microsoft is a hugely
yeah,
successful company. I mean,
yeah.
it's legal, and his position has a lot of justice. And then there's the Free Software Foundation and the Linux crowd on the other side of that.
And
And
let's see how Linux is
well,
doing.
Linux has been really basically replaced Windows now. Like 90% of web queries are now from like Android phones or Mac or Apple phones, which are both Linux and Unix. So you could argue that Linux ultimately won in some ways, but Microsoft won in other ways. They're still making tons of money.
Yeah, yeah,
Turns
yeah. I
out both
mean,
of them
yeah,
have a pretty good result.
yeah. Well, one took much longer, meaning the Linux world.
Well,
Windows
yeah,
became the
yeah,
DOS,
yeah,
right? DOS took over. That
yeah,
doesn't mean it was the best, but it was the best in how it was marketed.
yeah. And around 2000 is when they tried to split up Microsoft. And that's when Bill Gates said, you don't need to split us up. We're running as fast as you can to stay on top of this rolling ball. And at some
Yeah,
point, we'll stumble. And pretty soon they stumbled because they never made it onto phones and tablets. That's how Linux took over. The Linux never took over the desktop, but they totally took over phones and tablets.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's mostly what people use. So that basically broke Microsoft. Half of the potential business went to somewhere else.
yeah. Well, in the phone world, that went to Apple.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that and Android, which Microsoft
and
owns a
Android.
15% stake in. So Microsoft but they did pretty well with servers and stuff. So I mean, but they did. You might. It's about the same thing that would have happened if you had split them up with a lawsuit. They
Yeah,
ended up losing about half of their business to a rival company.
yeah,
That's why I think Bill
yeah,
Gates was correct. You don't need to split them with the law. The market will split them up.
yeah. In that case, it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right about Meta that they're that they're pure profit oriented,
Yeah.
and
And,
we've known that.
and they did, private studies showing that they knew it was harming teenage girls and they just covered it up. Just like the oil companies in the 80s knew they were ruining the climate and just covered it up. And the cigarette companies knew
Cigarette
they were killing people
companies
and just covered it up. It's,
and the sugar industry, same thing,
it's,
causing yeah, obesity and health
yeah,
problems with adding sugar to food that normally doesn't have added sugars to
this is the
make it.
problem with
Yeah,
capitalism. There's an incentive to just do any rotten thing to make more money.
that's right. So let's move on here. We'll
Yeah.
move from Facebook to go to YouTube.
Okay.
So YouTube, if you've been following this, has gone nuts removing 11 Windows 11 bypass
Oh,
tutorials.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, with the claim, now you got to explain this, Sam, that it causes physical harm.
I didn't see that claim. How do you say that?
Yeah, that's the question. So I think it's there's more to the physical harm category than than just physical harm. In other words, it has to be a detriment or um, cause undue risk or something along those. There's some legal term that
Yeah.
that's how they're getting it removed. And this is also the tutorials on how to make Windows 10, how to bypass that or to keep getting the security updates.
Yeah. Well, the fact is, and Cory Doctorow's enshittification has hit Windows 11 hard. Windows 11 is very, very much annoying people with the ads on the desktop, with forcing you to use a cloud login, with ramming AI features that you don't want in there. It's, it's,
Yeah,
people are pretty fed
yeah.
up with Windows and they would like to clean up Windows.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm really fed up with AI
Yeah.
in using Word, PowerPoint, Excel. I know
Yeah.
what I'm doing. I don't need suggestions.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a way of turning it off. I thought I had, and I think I had turned some of it off, or I think I've turned it off temporarily where it
You know,
comes down.
Remember, I think when Windows 8 came out, third-party tools came out to like change the desktop back to normal before Microsoft did. And I think there's definitely a market for a Windows 11 cleanup tool from some third party that just removes all the crap and makes it look like Windows 10
Yeah.
or like Windows 7. I think you could make money selling that.
Yeah. I will tell you, I know, Sam, you don't agree with me, but I was a fan of Windows 8 or Windows 8.1, where you could switch between the GUI environment and the desktop, the command line. That was perfect.
Well, good. I gave up and got a Mac around then. I was fed
Yeah,
up with it
okay.
all.
All right, I got one last one.
Yeah.
We're going around the world here. As we
Yeah.
know, Australia is going to ban access for children or kids under 15 to social media
Oh, everybody's
starting.
doing it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Denmark's on board with that.
I think several U.S. states, or at least
Yeah.
already age-gating the porn, they might be age-gating social media too. I'm not sure. I know like the red states, Texas and stuff are doing it.
Yeah. Well, UK tried that and huge increase in VPN
Well, yeah. So
purchases.
the next step is to try to ban the VPNs like Russia did, but that hasn't begun spreading too far yet.
Yeah. We'll see how well that works. All
Well,
right.
you could block them pretty well with a firewall, I suppose. And anyway, then there'll be an arms race of hiding them more and more, like there is with Tor. People already try to block Tor, and the Tor project keeps updating to punch through the blocks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cat and mouse game or, burglar and security companies.
Yeah, but just like the Pirate Bay, if they're vigorous enough with their enforcement activities, they can eventually wear down the other side.
Yeah. So here's one. This is out of Washington State. Flock cameras. Flock cameras are being used to record license plates.
Right.
And it turns out they take pictures and they're using AI that can determine the type of car, maybe the images of the people inside.
Yeah.
And a judge has ruled, you ready for this? If those flock cameras were purchased or services with any government funds, those are in the public domain. Those are not exclusively for law enforcement.
Wow, that's
So, what
now,
that means
boy,
is if you're a company, you could acquire that data and start doing some marketing, sell it to big data, data aggregators. You see where I'm going with this, Sam?
well, this is something people worried about all along. If you could get the license plate data, then you know where everybody's going. You know who's going to the whorehouse. You know who's going to like the smoke shop. You know who's going to meet late at night with lobbyists or something. That could really invade privacy a lot.
Yeah. And if you have kids in the car, you have pictures of images of the kids in the
Man,
car.
man,
Now, Texas has already banned flock in some counties. Other counties are considering it.
yeah.
So this is going to turn into something kind of more interesting. A lot of people are in the Oakland where they're doing flock cameras. There's a big debate over this. And the claim is that ICE has been using
Well,
flock
probably.
images, yeah,
But that's
to
actually
track
law
people.
enforcement of a sort, so I would expect that.
Yeah, but I think with the sanctioned cities that local governments, right, have been prohibited from sharing information. That's a legal matter. Let's not go
Right,
there.
right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
But the,
battle going on over that. That's the
yeah,
sanctuary city stuff, and
yeah.
the Trump administration is trying to use federal power to overrule that, and that battle is currently underway.
Yeah. So let's kind of leave that out of the picture. But I think what's more interesting is you're right. You can track people to see where they're going, who they're
You could
going.
you could see who's going to an abortion clinic. You could find
Exactly.
out when my wife tells me she's working, is she really working or is she visiting her boyfriend?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. If that was really in the public domain and just readily available, that would greatly change the whole concept of privacy.
Exactly. Exactly. So people in Oakland are fed up with crime and they're saying we see no harm in that, where others are saying absolutely there's harm. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That's the Bay Area. What's
Yeah.
going on there?
Well, and that's the way it usually is. If there's enough concern for safety, then people will accept privacy intrusions to stop it. Like I remember when the UK has much more terrorism than we do, and they went and interviewed like random guys on the street and said, the government's spying on your email, and they say if they have to read my email to catch the terrorist, that's just fine. I don't mind that. Whereas Americans have a different attitude because we have a lot less terrorism.
Yeah. Right.
If
Right.
we had like a
Right.
9/11 every year, we would probably take that attitude too.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for me this Veterans Day.
All right, let me see if I got any of
You
these.
got any more for us, Sam?
Th- the yeah, I got a few actual security ones.
Oh,
It
okay.
turns out, the people who are suing people to block like sites that are distributing their IP, like movies and stuff, they're
Hmm.
finding it so difficult to attack the sites that are hosting this stuff that now they're suing the DNS providers, saying they need to block it at the DNS level. And the DNS providers, in particular 9.9.9.9, is protesting and saying, hey, man, now we're getting hit with floods of lawsuits, like copyright lawsuits, that we need to take these sites out of our DNS database for copyright reasons, and we don't have the money to handle it. They say large commercial players like Google, Cloudflare, and Cisco, they can handle it. But for small mission-driven nonprofits like Quad 9, this could end our business. If they now have to deal with the endless flood of copyright lawsuits. So this is an issue I've been involved in for more than 20 years. I mean, should you attack the intermediaries like Cloudflare? When Cloudflare just it removes the attacks from websites, and everyone would sue them to say take stuff down. And I said, it doesn't make any sense to sue the pipes in the middle. You might as well sue Comcast and say, why do you allow your cables to transmit illegal content?
Yeah.
You should filter all the illegal content off it. That's one possible way to do it, but it seems to make more sense to attack the hosting providers. Anyway, this issue's been going on forever. Um,
Well, that's kind of like the lawsuit that was against Pirate Bay. Pirate Bay
yeah,
was just a directory
like
that
Google.
pointed people, yeah, to where,
And people sued Google too, saying you have to take this stuff out of your list.
yeah, and were those lawsuits successful against Google?
Well, I don't know. I think that the
Do
big
you
one was
know?
GDPR. GDPR with the right to forgotten. I think everybody has. First, they said we can't do that; it would be too expensive. Now they've all had to do it because of GDPR. They made it possible to remove things from the list.
Yeah. So with Pirate Bay, the technology wasn't very well understood, is what I would argue, in the court system.
Yeah.
Because the courts kind of said, well, you're providing the music. And the answer is no, we're not providing the music. We're just saying, oh, this person over here has, or this group of people is where you can go and get the music from,
Well,
which is
yeah,
not,
but I mean, the fact is that service means more people can find the music. Without that service, a bunch of people won't find the music. So it's totally true that if they take it down, that will mean less privacy.
yeah, but Pirate Bay wasn't providing the music. You
That's
should go
yeah,
after the individual who uploaded the music.
it's exactly this issue. I mean,
Yeah.
do you choke it off at the
Yeah,
intermediate
right,
point?
right.
And of course, nobody wants to be the one that has to go to the effort of filtering and choking the stuff off.
Yeah, and remember with Pirate Bay, not only did you have popular music, you
Yeah,
also had not so popular music.
I'm sure.
I mean, anybody could upload their music.
Yeah,
I could sing a song, which you wouldn't want to hear,
yeah, yeah.
but I could have uploaded that to Pirate Bay.
Oh,
Nobody
yeah.
would have downloaded it.
Oh, and some people got legal stuff on torrents like Linux,
Yeah,
but that
yeah,
just was not the main use of it.
yeah, yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
another one
Any,
is
yeah.
Google has issued a security alert. People are putting up fake VPN apps, which are then spyware, which is kind of obvious. And so they mention the recommend this company. Let me get the name of the company. They're pretty reputable. Yeah, Tech Radar issued their recommendation. They say the best free VPNs are Proton, Privado, and Windscribe. They say you should use known ones like that, not shady ones that might actually be fake.
Become free, yeah. But you know, now the question is, they're going to be clones of the website.
Oh, yes, that's what they
Yeah,
do. They make it look
yeah,
like one you can trust. And the
right.
other one I heard of, which is not complicated technically, but apparently quite effective, is the new phishing attack called ClickFix. And what this does is they send you some kind of lure, which might be an email about a hotel you really have a registration with real accurate information about you. So apparently they managed to steal that information, or it'll be a WhatsApp message or the URL at the top of a Google search. That's how it starts. And then it presents you with a CAPTCHA, but the CAPTCHA says, in order to pass the CAPTCHA test, copy this text and paste it into a terminal window. Press enter. And of course, that you could do anything then, and that of course installs an info stealer and then your host. And this works on both Macs and PCs, of course.
Yep,
And
yep,
that'll fool people. And that's pretty good social engineering. I mean, of course, if you'll do that, the game is over. And most
yeah,
people don't know what that terminal window is anyway. So, okay, I guess what the hell is this?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's a pretty good trick. So people should be aware of that. If a captcha tells you to do that, don't do it.
Yeah, you know, Sam, there's a woman in Berkeley who's a teacher,
Mhm.
and she just gave away her life savings, $65,000
Yeah,
to scammers who said that they were from OPD, Oakland Police,
yeah.
and that she was supposed to be a juror in a trial, and the entire trial was being held up because she wasn't present.
Yeah.
And they kept her on the phone for, I think, over 24 hours while
Yeah.
they drained her bank account.
I've heard a bunch of these. And
Yeah,
Kevin Mandia gave a talk at CPTC, which was very good. And there's about 100 people in the room. And he said, one of my relatives had their whole life savings stolen by a scam. And he said, how many people have had a relative that had this happen? And several hands went up in the audience. This is really common, that especially your elderly relatives
yeah,
get hooked by one of these scams and they end up sending all their money somewhere. It's a big problem.
yeah. This happened to my mother-in-law, and
Yeah.
it was, hi grandma, I'm stuck in an airport. I need some money.
Yeah,
I'm traveling.
yeah.
Can you send me some? And nobody in our family calls her grandma. So she knew that it was a scam immediately.
It happened to my friend who was like 95. He said, I'm your grandson. I need money." And he knew where his grandson was, and he knew his grandson was not there. So again, he
Yeah.
didn't fall for it. But I mean, people will definitely fall for it. I know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I know one advantage in Florida. I used to do fraud restitution for the Federal Trade Commission and
Oh,
a
yeah.
company,
That's right.
and every time we had a case that had Florida victims, here's an interesting fact. If you run any kind of business in Florida that sells collectibles or anything, you have to put like millions of dollars in a special fund in Florida just to give refunds to anybody you scam. You can't even start selling until you fund that first. And if there's a lawsuit like ours, a national lawsuit where people get refunds, all the people in Florida get a second refund from the state. Because so many old people in Florida got scammed, they have a special state level refund program, which is a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. And where's the initial funding coming from?
Every business that wants to sell stuff in Florida has to donate a certain amount of money into that fund in order to advertise and sell stuff in Florida.
Like it's a
It's a
tax,
tax, an extra
if
tax
you
on
will.
people who sell stuff in Florida just to refund the elderly victims that you scam because it happens all the time because everybody from the cold states retires to Florida and they get old and sick and they start getting scammed.
But the scammers obviously don't pay into that fund or websites
No,
with
but
like,
but there's a whole bunch of semi-legitimate businesses like I
yeah.
see them that say we sell these commemorative statues of like the
Oh,
president.
I see. I
They're
see.
going to
Yeah.
go up in value or something.
Yeah.
The ones that really advertise on TV, so they're not just totally crooks. They sell something, but they kind of deceive you about how valuable it is.
Yeah. Sam, I think when I was a teenager, I bought some Kennedy, what was it, half dollars or dollars by the Franklin Mint.
Oh, that's it.
And
Franklin Mint is one of the big ones, making commemorative stuff, which is essentially before meme coins. These are meme coins.
yeah.
A
Yeah. And
collectible
Franklin,
that you imagine will go up in value, but in fact, it doesn't go up in value.
yeah. I think I bought them 3 years in a row.
Yeah,
And here, what is it, 50 or so plus years later?
yeah,
I think I paid $3 or worth $3.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of collectibles is, remember those NFTs, like pictures of an ape or something? It was the same,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
The question is, it doesn't, and that's why I say it's going to be the same thing with the AI actresses. Is it really good enough that people will actually cherish it, make it collectible, and the value goes up? It would have to actually be good art. And it's just a question of, is there a person who can use that medium to make real art that people respect? And
Yeah.
that's a question. Maybe so. Like, for example, the Bugs Bunny stills do in fact go up in value, and the Disney stuff, those little cartoons are valuable and people pay a lot for them and they collect the original stuff. So that's good enough art. So maybe you could do that with AI. You could make your art so good that people actually respect it and value it and collect it.
Well, same with movie props, movie
Yeah.
and TV props,
Yeah, like
right?
the original
Those,
Enterprise stuff from the set is selling for a pile of money, and the original guitars that Jimi Hendrix used and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
If you and the baseball bat that the baseball players used to win the World Series, yeah, sure, if you actually make a real accomplishment, then it will go up in value.
Yeah. There was a lawsuit, and I can't remember one of the baseball teams. Somebody had hit their, I don't know, 50th, 100th home run,
Yeah,
and somebody picked up the ball
yeah,
and they were going out of the stadium. Security guards stopped them and said, "Hey, you're stealing." And it's like, no, 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 no. I got this. I picked it up. It went out of the ballpark. So this has already been ruled in court. If a fan reaches over the fence onto the playing field, meaning, or onto the grass, not the playing field, but the area of play, which
yeah,
includes out of bounds. But if they reach over the railing, they pick up a ball that's on the ground. That's considered theft. But as soon as the ball crosses over into the stands, then it's considered abandoned property.
yeah. Well, there
So,
to be. Yep, it's just like finding a shipwreck. There's got to be a rule of some kind.
Yeah, yeah. Shipwrecks are interesting. There's flotsam and jetsam,
Yeah.
and one is floating, the other's on the bottom. I
Uh,
think if it's floating, it's not abandoned, but if it's on the bottom, it is abandoned
yeah, yeah. Well, it
or
makes
below the
sense.
surface.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. This points out the thing that the whole notion of private property and ownership is kind of artificial and vague.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, that's it, I think, for me.
Yep, that's it for me. We'll see you on Friday.
Yeah.
And boy, we're getting close to Thanksgiving, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.